To understand the relentless engine that is Jeff Bezos, we must first look at a world without internet, without computers, and without easy answers. Imagine the shimmering heat of the Texas brush country in the mid-1970s. This is Cajula, a place of dust and grit, where a young Jeff spent every summer from the age of 4 to 16. This wasn't a vacation, it was a master class in the resourcefulness of the soul. His grandfather, Lawrence Preston Guise, known simply as Pa, was a retired high-level official for the Atomic Energy Commission. But on the ranch, titles didn't matter. What mattered was whether the windmill was turning and whether the cattle were healthy. Jeff watched his grandfather take on tasks that would seem impossible to a modern city dweller. He didn't just see a man fixing a fence. He saw a man who, when a heavy piece of machinery broke, would fabricate the replacement part himself using an arc welder and a pile of scrap metal. Jeff once told a story about Pa Guise performing surgery on a cow with a prolapsed uterus. There was no vet to call. There was only the problem, the tools at hand, and the will to solve it. This fix-it-yourself mentality became the primary software of Jeff's brain. He learned that if you are clever and you don't give up, you can build a house, repair a tractor, or vaccinate a herd of cattle. But there was a darker, more personal layer to this drive. Jeff was born Jeffrey Preston Jorgensen. His biological father, Ted, was a teenage unicyclist in a circus. A man who drifted out of the picture before Jeff could even form memories. His stepfather, Mike Bezos, was a Cuban immigrant who arrived in America at 15 with nothing but a few shirts and a fierce determination to be someone. That dual heritage, the mechanical grit of the Texas rancher and the immigrant's nothing-to-lose hunger, created a unique psychological cocktail. It produced a boy who wasn't just smart, but a boy who felt he had to engineer his own destiny because the one he was born with was too fragile to trust. By 1994, Jeff Bezos had seemingly won the game of life. He was 30 years old, working on the upper floors of a Manhattan skyscraper for D. Shaw, one of the most sophisticated hedge funds in the world. He was the youngest senior vice president in the firm's history. He had a brilliant wife, Mackenzie, a massive salary, and a trajectory that led straight to the summit of global finance. But Jeff was a man haunted by a number, 2,300%. That was the annual growth rate of the World Wide Web in the early 90s. While most people saw the internet as a playground for academics or a hobby for nerds, Jeff's Pa Guise brain saw it as a frontier. He saw a massive, untapped infrastructure that was waiting for a resourceful architect. He went to his boss, David Shaw, and they took a long walk through the bustling streets of New York. Jeff laid out his vision for an everything store. Shaw listened patiently and then gave Jeff a piece of advice that would have stopped anyone else. That sounds like a wonderful idea for someone who doesn't already have a great job. This brings us to the most critical crossroads in modern business history, the regret minimization framework. Jeff didn't use a spreadsheet to make his decision. He used a time machine. He projected himself forward to the age of 80. He imagined himself sitting on a porch looking back at his life. He knew that at 80 he wouldn't even remember the Wall Street bonus he walked away from. But he knew for a fact that he would be haunted by the ghost of the man who saw the internet coming and was too afraid to jump. He chose the path of potential failure over the certainty of regret. He chose the car, the boxes, and the uncertainty of a garage in Seattle. He wasn't just quitting a job, he was burning the boats on the shore. Success is often painted as a straight line, but in the early days of Amazon, it felt like a circle that refused to move. The garage in Bellevue, Washington, was not a place of high-tech glory. It was a cramped, cold space where the power would regularly flicker out. Jeff and his first handful of employees sat at desks made out of wooden doors from Home Depot. Why? Because doors were cheaper than desks, and Jeff believed that every dollar not spent on the customer was a dollar wasted. In those first months, the never give up mentality wasn't an abstract concept. It was a physical requirement. Jeff and Mackenzie spent their nights on a concrete floor, packing books into cardboard boxes. Their knees ached, their fingers were sliced by packing tape, and their bank account was draining. People laughed at the name Amazon. They laughed at the idea that people would trust a stranger on a screen with their credit card numbers to buy a book they could get at the store down the street. But Jeff was obsessed with the flywheel. He knew that if he could just get the wheel to spin, even an inch, momentum would eventually take over. This required a level of discipline that bordered on the fanatical. He didn't care about making a profit in year 1, or even year 5. He cared about customer obsession. He once said that his competitors were focused on each other, while he was focused on the person paying the bill. This era was a test of faith. He was working 18-hour days, fueled by a terrifying laugh and a belief that he was building a utility for the human race. He wasn't just selling books, he was testing a system. He was proving that resourcefulness could scale from a Texas ranch to a global network. The garage was the tunnel and the light at the end was still miles away. Then came the year 2000, the year the music stopped. The dot-com bubble didn't just pop, it disintegrated. Thousands of companies that had been worth billions on paper vanished in a matter of weeks. Pets.com, Webvan, Cosmo, they all fell. Amazon was not spared. The stock price crashed from over $100 to a measly $6. The media, which loves to build idols just to tear them down, turned on Jeff with a vengeance. The headlines read, Amazon.bomb. This is the moment most people quit. This is the moment where the cost becomes too high. Jeff was watching his net worth vanish by the billions every single day. Investors were screaming for his resignation. But Jeff possessed a long-term discipline that made him immune to the noise. He looked at his internal metrics. While the stock market was in a panic, Amazon's customers were actually buying more than ever. The customer experience was improving. The flywheel was spinning even if the world couldn't see it through the smoke of the crash. Jeff told his employees that they shouldn't feel smarter when the stock was high, and they shouldn't feel dumber when it was low. He introduced the Day One philosophy, a radical idea that no matter how big the company gets, you must maintain the hunger and the terror of a startup. Day 2 is stasis, followed by irrelevance, followed by an excruciatingly painful decline, followed by death. He chose to live in the permanent discomfort of Day 1. He survived the crash not because he was lucky, but because he was willing to be misunderstood for a very, very long time. As the light at the end of the tunnel became a blinding sun, the world began to see the cost of this level of success. Jeff Bezos had become the richest man in history, but he had also become a symbol of something more complex. To build a machine that can deliver any object to any door in 24 hours, you have to be more than a manager, you have to be a commander. The discipline that saved Amazon also created a culture of extreme pressure. Stories emerged of white-collar workers crying at their desks and blue-collar workers pushed to their physical limits in massive robotic warehouses. Jeff's hardcore leadership style, the banning of PowerPoints, the demand for 6-page memos, the 2-pizza rule for teams, it all pointed toward a man who had sacrificed the human pace of life for the algorithmic pace of growth. Then the personal cost became public. In 2019, after 25 years of marriage, Jeff and Mackenzie announced their divorce. This was the woman who had shared the garage, who had packed the boxes, and who had driven the car across the country while he wrote the dream. The fracture was a reminder that even the most optimized life has breaking points. He traded his privacy, his hair, and his quiet life for a seat at the head of the world. He became a target for politicians, for labor unions, and for the collective anxiety of a society moving too fast. He had won the game, but the game had changed him. The lanky bookworm with the goofy laugh was gone, replaced by a muscled, sunglass-wearing titan who looked more like a conqueror than a librarian. The success was absolute, but so was the isolation that came with it. Today, Jeff Bezos is no longer the CEO of Amazon, but his vision has moved from the warehouse floor to the infinite black of space. He founded Blue Origin with a singular goal: to build a road to space so that future generations can unleash their creativity. He isn't just building rockets, he's building an insurance policy for the fragile pearl that is Earth. This brings us full circle back to the boy on the Texas ranch. The boy who dismantled his crib with a screwdriver is now building the infrastructure for a multiplanetary civilization. He is spending his billions not on yachts or islands, though he has those too, but on the belief that humanity's destiny lies among the stars. The lesson of Jeff Bezos isn't about the money. It's about the never give up mindset when everyone else is laughing. It's about the discipline to ignore the stock price when it's at $6. It's about the resourcefulness to turn a wooden door into a desk. His story tells us that the tunnel is long and the darkness is real. But the light at the end isn't a destination you reach, it's a fire you carry within yourself. Whether you admire him or fear his power, you cannot deny the truth of his journey, that one person armed with a door desk and a regret minimization framework can move the world. So, as you finish watching this, ask yourself, what is your day one? What is the thing you will regret not doing when you are 80 years old? The tunnel is waiting. The tools are in your hands. It is time to start walking. Because it is still and always will be day one. Jeff Bezos built an empire by focusing on the long term. He knew that the biggest rewards don't come to those who seek a quick win, but to those who are willing to be misunderstood for a decade. Now, I have a question for you. What is your everything store? What is the one dream you've been too afraid to start? Tell me in the comments below. I read every single one and I want to hear what your day one looks like. If this deep dive into the cost of greatness moved you, help us grow this community of thinkers and builders. Hit the like button. It tells the algorithm that stories of resilience and discipline still matter. And if you aren't ready to leave the tunnel just yet, click the video on your screen now to explore our other biographies on the architects of the modern world. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a chapter of the stories that define our future. Remember, the garage is empty, the car is packed, and the world is waiting. We'll see you in the next one.